Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, my dear girls? Inshallah, today I'm going to explain the last lesson in this term, which is Unit 2, Lesson 1, the colonization of the Middle East, or the Middle East in the year 1800s. Let us start. European colonial powers. The colonization of the Middle East began when Napoleon Bonaparte of France invaded Egypt in the year 1798. And here I want to stop in order to let you understand the meaning of the word colonization. Colonization is a noun from the verb colonize, and colonize means when a country go and take another country by force to steal the wealth or the riches there. So when a strong country go and take another country because it's rich and kill the people there and steal whatever they can find there, we call this colonize. Napoleon Bonaparte started all of this when he controlled Egypt and took his army and went to Egypt and took it by force and killed a lot of the Egyptian people in the year 1798. He started this. Then other countries from Europe started to do the same, and that's why we said that the colonization of the Middle East began. And when we say began, it means that it continued to happen, but the one who started this was Napoleon Bonaparte. He was the leader of France, and he started this in the year 1798. The year 1798 means at the end of the 18th century, and this continued for the rest of the 19th century. And the word century means 100 years. Egypt was an important part from the Islamic Ottoman state. Islamic Ottoman state means the Muslim state that was started by the Rashidun caliphs, if you remember. Its geographical position made it very attractive to the European traders and the empire builders. The position or the place of Egypt on the map of the world or on earth was very attractive because it was a central country. France and Britain were the most powerful European countries at this time. Actually, France and Britain were the two main colonizers. They were rivals, rivals mean not friends. And the Middle East became a victim of the power struggle between them. The two countries, France and Britain, made it like a competition. Each one of them tried to take more countries than the other. France and Britain occupied and colonized many countries of the Middle East and North Africa. I told you they made it like a competition. When France occupied or colonized one country, Britain tried to colonize another country. If France tried to take another country, Britain tried to take more countries than France. They made it like a competition. And the victim for this competition was the Middle Eastern countries. Later, were France and Britain the European countries to do this? No. Later, other European countries or powers also invaded the Middle East, like Italy. What did Italy do? Italy invaded the country of Ethiopia, but the people of Ethiopia defeated them. Later, they colonized Libya and they stayed in Libya for a lot of years. Maybe you can say that they colonized Libya for more than 40 years, and we will see this very clear in the map that will be discussed now. Look at this map. This map can show us very well how the Middle East was divided between them. The purple color, all these countries are the countries of the Middle East. This is the Middle East. Can you see Egypt? Egypt is in the middle of the Middle East, and this is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and the countries around it is also part from the Middle East. Can you see how the Middle East was divided between France and Britain and Italy? The countries in purple were colonized by Britain. The countries in orange were colonized by France. The Libya in pink was colonized by Italy, and so on. If you study this map very well, you can see how the Middle East was divided. Can you see the two small blue color? It means that the blue color means that these places or these lands from the Middle East were controlled by Spain or taken by Spain. Who is this man? This man is Muhammad Ali. If Napoleon Bonaparte was the leader of France, Muhammad Ali was a leader for Egypt from the year 1805 until the year 1848. What did Muhammad Ali do for Egypt? He helped to make Egypt a strong and modern state. That was a great man in the history of Egypt. Let us see what happened at that time. Do you remember the Islamic State or the Muslim State? Yeah, the Muslim State after so many years were controlled by the Ottomans or the Turkish people. The Muslim state that was big and large was or came to an end during World War I. World War I was from the year 1914 to the year 1918. At the end of this war, the Muslim state was divided and it came to an end. And it was divided and between France and Britain. Again, the Middle East or the Muslim state was divided between France and Britain after World War I ended. Why? Because many but what did the people do after the Middle East was divided between France and Britain at the end of World War I? The people in the Middle East reacted to foreign control. How did they react? Of course, badly. There were uprisings or revolutions or fighting which were crushed. This led to wars. Of course, the people in the Middle East made wars against the European people who took their countries of independence in many of the Middle Eastern countries before each new independent Islamic state emerged. It means that the people in the Middle East did not stay quiet when the people from Europe or the countries of Europe controlled them. They started to make wars and fight them until they could send them out, but after more than 100 years. What happened, or how did we get all this information about what happened in the past? Of course, from all the newspapers like this. So we collected the old newspapers like this and took all the information about what happened at this time from these old newspapers, and also from the biographies or the diaries that were written by the people who lived at that time. So if we wanted to say how many years did this last, we can say that from the year 1798 when Napoleon Bonaparte colonized Egypt until the year 1918, it was about 100 years or a century. There were great changes to the Middle East. Look, can you see this timeline? This timeline can give us a summary for what happened. When did this colonization start? When Napoleon Bonaparte, the leader of France, invaded or colonized Egypt. In which year? In the year 1798. After a few years, France occupied Algeria or colonized Algeria, Aljazair. Then Britain started to do the same and took Yemen or Aden. In this year, Suez Canal was open, and Suez Canal is a small body of water made by people. They dug this canal in Egypt just to connect the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. When the Suez Canal was dug or opened, it made the Middle East more attractive for the colonizers, and Britain and France continued to fight for the Middle East more than before. Also, in this year, France occupied Tunisia or colonized Tunis. Here, British occupied Egypt. Oh my God. So it means that Egypt was occupied or colonized twice. Yes, one time by France and the next time by Britain. France stayed in Egypt for less than 4 years, but Britain controlled or colonized Egypt for about 75 or 74 years. Then here, the end of World War I. At the end of World War I, the Muslim state came to an end and it was divided between France and Britain. In this year, the people in the Middle East started to fight the European colonizers or France and Britain in order to send them out of the Middle East. The colonization of the Middle East continued from the year 1798 until the year 1919. It means for about 100 years. We call this 100 years a century, and it was the 19th century. Look here, Britain and France competed against each other to establish colonies in many parts of the world. It means that they make it like a competition. Every one of them wanted to take more countries and colonize more countries than the other. The colonies helped to make these two European countries wealthy, means rich, and powerful, means strong, in the 19th century. So the colonization of the Middle East helped to make France and Britain very rich and very strong in the 19th century. Britain and France knew that there were resources and wealth. Wealth means a lot of money and treasures in the Middle East. They had maps of the area and the trade routes drawn by the Arabian geographers. This paragraph tells us why France and Britain made a competition to colonize the Middle East, because they were sure that the place of the Middle East is important, and the Middle East has a lot of treasures and money and wealth, and they wanted to take all of these things to be powerful and rich. Okay, Britain and France also realized that the position of Egypt was very important. That's why they colonized Egypt. The two of them colonized Egypt. Egypt is in the continent of Africa, but it is very close to Europe and Asia. There is a narrow strip of land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. In this land, the Suez Canal was dug. Traders from Europe could cross the land if they wanted to travel to countries in the east, instead of going all the way around Africa by sea. This paragraph you can understand it more if you watch the educational video on class era. Can you see? This is Egypt in the middle. The red lines mean the trade routes. What's the meaning of the trade routes? The way in which the traders used to move in order to carry goods from the east to the west. Can you see how all the trade routes are found in the Middle East? And that's why the countries from Europe, like France and Britain and Italy, colonized the countries of the Middle East for trade, to control the trade in the world and to get more money. Here, from all this page, we wanted to talk about the French invasion or the French colonization of the Middle East. All this page is talking about the French invasion to Egypt. Why did France come to Egypt? Of course, to control Egypt and to take the riches and the resources in Egypt, but there is another reason that made Napoleon Bonaparte, that man, to start with Egypt. Why? He wanted to attack the trade of France's great enemy, Britain, in Egypt. Napoleon Bonaparte knew well that Britain had trade that go through Egypt. He wanted to control Egypt in order to attack the trade of Britain there, and that was like a punishment for Britain, because I told you before that France and Britain were like enemies. He also wanted to or he was also attracted by the Egypt's economic and geographical position. Egypt was remarkable for anyone. This picture shows us how the French people started to reach Egypt and they killed the Egyptian people in order to colonize Egypt. Can you see how the picture is so bad? Here in this picture, it talks about how the French people colonized two more countries. The first of them was Algeria in the north of Africa, and the second was Tunisia, which was the neighbor for Algeria. Look here how these people are the French soldiers, and these people are the people of Algeria or Aljazair. Can you see how the French people killed the Algerian people or the people of Algeria and they took their country by force? Here, in this year, the French army occupied Algeria, and in order to keep Algeria forever and protect Algeria, they decided to take Tunisia. And they managed to take Tunisia or colonize Tunisia in the year 1881. So in this page and the previous page, we understand that France took three countries until now. Egypt first, then Algeria, Aljazair, then Tunisia. The French people stayed in Egypt for about 3 years or more, but less than 4 years. But they stayed in Algeria and Tunisia for more than 40 years. This is what the French people did. What about Britain? This the other European colonizer. We said that France and Britain were the two main colonizers. Let us talk about what the British people do. In this year, Britain was a powerful empire with colonies in different parts of the world. Britain regarded India as its most important colony. So, what was the first place for Britain to colonize? India. India. Why? Because it was a rich area and the trade with this part of the world was very important for Britain. In the year 1839, the British seized Aden. Aden means Yemen. Why did Britain colonize Aden or Yemen? Huh? Can you see this? To protect their trade routes by sea to India, because the ships that were loaded with goods from India to Britain had to go near Aden. The thieves in Aden used to attack these ships and take the things that Britain wanted to take them to their country. So, in order for Britain to protect their trade from India, they colonized Aden or Yemen. They also made agreements with the other rulers of on the Arabian or on the coast of Arabia. So, from this paragraph, we understand that Britain colonized India because it was rich, and then colonized Aden or Yemen to protect their trade from India. For Britain, Egypt was particularly important. This was because Egypt was an important trade route between the Mediterranean Sea and the India. The British made sure that there were railway lines through Egypt to make trade quicker and easier. In this year, the Suez Canal was opened, and I told you that the Suez Canal is along a canal of water dug by people to connect the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. When it was dug, it made Egypt more and more and more important, and for that reason, Britain decided to colonize Egypt later. Why? So in this year, can you circle it? Britain invaded Egypt. They also took control of the Suez Canal. So in this year, Britain colonized Egypt and controlled the Suez Canal. Which happened here? Here we are talking about the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire equal the Muslim state, because the Muslim state that was started by the Rashidun caliphs after many years was controlled by the Ottomans or the Turkish people. Britain, France, and Russia means Russia, were also determined to stop the Ottoman Empire from becoming stronger. They did not want the Ottoman Empire to continue to be strong. For example, in this year, the Egyptian leader Muhammad Ali, the leader of Egypt, had sent his navy, his sea forces to Constantinople to help the Ottoman protect their lands in the east. The British and the French immediately sent forces to stop Muhammad Ali's navy. The Ottoman Empire came to an end and was divided between France and Britain in the year 1918 at the end of World War I. Inshallah, next lesson will be World War I, and we will discuss what's happened in World War I. Thanks for your listening, and goodbye till we meet again.